All right, we've got quite a few people in the webinar already, so let's kick things off. Welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today for what's sure to be a really exciting and very cute presentation about turtles. I'm excited. Before we kick off, many, if not all of us, are joining from somewhere within the Ottawa River watershed, which is the unceded and unsurrendered territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people. Even while we're meeting digitally in a format such as we are today, it's important to remember and acknowledge that fact. J'aimerais aussi vous faire savoir que le webinaire aujourd'hui se déroulera principalement en anglais, mais nous sommes un organisme bilingue, donc vous pouvez poser vos questions en français ou après le webinaire, nous envoyer un courriel pour demander n'importe quelle clarification ou n'importe quoi. De plus, la plupart ou peut-être la totalité de ce que nous couvrons aujourd'hui est disponible sur notre site web dans les deux langues, donc vous pouvez le consulter sur notre site web. Finally, we're going to finish off the webinar with a Q&A segment, so there'll be tons of time for question at the end. If you have a question and it comes up during the webinar, please use the Q&A function you'll find down at the bottom of your Zoom screen to submit a question, and we'll circle back to them at the end of the talk. That's it for me. I'm going to pass things over to Riverkeeper Laura Reinsborough to give some background information and introduce our amazing guest. Take it away, Laura.
Thank you so much, Matthew. Hi, everybody, and welcome. Bienvenue. It's so great to have this report back on the 2023 Petire Island Turtle Project as an Ottawa Riverkeeper webinar today. We're so thrilled. Personally, turtles are my favorite animals. And when I was 10, all I really wanted was to become a marine biologist, and I would watch turtle documentaries on TV. And so maybe Riverkeeper scratches that same itch. I'm grateful for the role that I play today, but also I get to partner and work with amazing people like turtle biologist Malcolm Fenech, who is presenting today. And so it's pretty much a dream come true that we were able to have this collaboration over the past summer. Really, it meant I had about 400 turtle co-workers in the office with me. So when Malcolm approached Ottawa Riverkeeper about this collaboration, he said, hey, I'm going to need a place for my egg incubator this summer. It was a pretty easy yes for us. And it turns out I'm not the only turtle fan out there. The turtles were a major draw at River House when it opened to the public. In our science lab, we were able to open our doors to the public, and folks came in to check out the eggs and then later the hatchlings. So it's been a very exciting and popular attraction to have this collaboration happening. So we wanted this opportunity, and Malcolm generously agreed to share back on what came of the project, where is his research now, and what were the findings and learnings from this past season. So personally and professionally, I'm very thrilled to welcome you all to this webinar today. I also want to share a bit about Ottawa Riverkeeper. So we were the host to the incubator. Our role writ large is to protect the Ottawa River and its tributaries. That is a vast river system. It faces many threats. It has incredible rich biodiversity. And so our work is really cut out for ourselves. We accomplish this through science, education, and advocacy work. And we get to do some fun collaborations like this one. If you want to learn more about Ottawa Riverkeeper or become involved in our work, the best way to stay tuned is through our newsletter. So we'll put that link in the chat for you today. And there's also social media as a great way to follow. So find us on most platforms that are out there. And I want to ensure that you all have a way to stay connected. So please do, if you have questions, if you have ways that you want to be engaged, let us know. When we get to the Q&A, we'll have a chance to ask questions specifically about this project. Je vous encourage, comme Mathieu a dit, que si vous aimeriez poser les questions en français, s'il vous plaît, faites-le. Moi et Mathieu pourrons répondre les questions en français. Et s'il y a des autres questions que nous ne pouvons pas répondre, ben, on suivra. So thanks so much for being here today, everybody. And thank you to Malcolm for being here. Without further ado, let's hear about the 2023 Petire Island Turtle Project from lead biologist Malcolm Fenech.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Laura and Matthew, for introducing me. I'm the biologist with the Petire Island Turtle Project. This past year was our third year of the Turtle Project at Petire Island. A little bit of background about the project is we started the project 3 years ago in 2021 when I started my master's degree at the University of Ottawa. The project has kind of evolved over the years, and this year we focused on a few different things about the project, and one of those was the big egg incubation project that we collaborated with the Riverkeepers. So I'll be going over that project a little bit, as well as a few others, and more general stuff about turtles at Petire Island and in the Ottawa River. Just gotta make sure. There we go. But to start off, I would like to thank the folks who made this project happen financially. Without the financial support of these organizations, the work that we can do to help save turtles and conserve them for future generations would not be possible. Honda Canada provided us with quite a bit of funding through the Honda Canada Foundation. So they were a really large contributor to our project and were really like turtles. We also had a lot of folks donate through our GoFundMe. This helped start raising funds to purchase the incubator for that project. And there's a lot of really generous folks and generous individuals in Ottawa that really wanted to support us. That was wonderful. We also got a grant from the awesome Ottawa Foundation to help purchase the incubator as well. And with their funding, we were able to finalize our purchase of the incubator. Trailhead Paddle Shack, located in Ottawa, also gave us a discount on the canoe we used for some of our other research projects as well. So that was quite important to us, as well as Patagonia Ottawa. So they donated some items that we were able to raffle off in a draw earlier in the summer. So all of these organizations came together to help us financially, and it was wonderful, and we couldn't have done it without their support. We also want to thank our partners with this project. Without them, I wouldn't be doing the work that I'd done. So the Canadian Wildlife Federation, we've been collaborating with 3 years, and this year we were able to apply for grants underneath them, and especially David Seaburn, who's the freshwater turtle specialist at CWF, has been our main collaborator for the last 3 years, as well as providing support and advice on all different projects. The Friends of Petire Island, they've been a nonprofit volunteer group with or for Petire Island for a few years now. They're well established, and they've been doing a lot of turtle outreach and environmental education stuff even before this project got started. So they have really supported us through the years and have been great partners over the past couple of years. And this year, we were lucky enough to partner with the Ottawa Riverkeeper, and that's why we're here today doing this webinar. Thankfully, they had a wonderful lab space that we were able to put the incubator in, and was able to hatch out almost 400 baby turtles, and it was a great collaboration. And we're excited to have them in as one of our partners for this project. So I'd like to first start off by talking about the turtles of Petire Island. Petire Island is quite diverse in terms of turtle species. Ontario has 8 native turtle species. All of them are species at risk, so they're at risk of going extinct. And the most common one you'll see around Petire Island is the painted turtle. So this guy, or this turtle in the top right corner, they're pretty common around the Ottawa area, but they have a beautiful pattern and that's where they get their name from. And you'll see many of them basking or sunning themselves on logs at Petire Island and other wetlands around Ottawa, and they're a joy to see. Another common turtle at Petire Island are snapping turtles. While they don't come out onto logs to sun themselves like painted turtles, if you go by Petire Island or are around wetlands in Ottawa in late May through June, you'll usually see a snapping turtle laying her eggs somewhere. And there's quite a few of them at Petire Island. They're really large. Usually when people think of a turtle, they imagine a snapping turtle. The other common turtle species we have at Petire Island are northern map turtles. These they're really interesting. They get their name from the pattern on their shell and their skin. It looks like contour lines on a map, and that's where they get their name from. So we've been doing some interesting work with them for 3 years now. They're really cool as well because males and females have a really large size difference. Females are quite large, whereas males are quite small, usually 3 to 4 times smaller than females. So they're super interesting and really, really cool species to work with. At Petire Island, we also have 2 other species that are not as common, and we don't know a whole lot about them, really. We have seen and we see usually a few Blanding's turtles every single year at Petire Island, which is interesting because we don't know if there's actually a population at Petire Island or they're just visitors coming to Petire Island, using the resources, using the good habitat, and then moving on elsewhere. So usually we see a couple of those every single year, and they're extremely important because they're threatened species. So they're more at risk than painted turtles, snapping turtles, and northern map turtles. We also have eastern musk turtles at Petire Island. So they're in the bottom left corner, and they're really interesting and really challenging to work with as well because they're almost entirely aquatic. They're very small, and they like to hang out in the mud or in the bottom of the of wetlands. Historically, we've seen, or there have been observations at Petire Island, and we actually saw a nest in 2022 of one. So we know there's some around the island. It's just they're quite challenging to work with, and we haven't had the opportunity to do so yet. So there's lots of turtles at Petire Island and quite diverse turtles as well. So why Petire Island? Why do we do all of this work and invest all of this time to work at Petire Island? For starters, there's large turtle populations relative to other wetlands in Ottawa, as well as on the Ottawa River. So this is a good thing for doing research projects and why we started doing started this project to begin with. And so that's really good. There's a lot of diversity, as I mentioned in the previous slide. And also for project continuation. So this is our 3rd year. This was our 3rd year working at Petire Island. If you look in the bottom right corner, that is or the photo in the bottom right corner, that is a photo from our 1st year when we were painting numbers on turtle shells to basically see where turtles went around Petire Island. It didn't work so well, but it was interesting for folks in the community to see and photograph turtles across the island and where they move through. Petire Island's also one of the last remaining significant wetlands on the Ottawa River and in the city of Ottawa. It has a lot of wildlife and biodiversity other than just turtles. If folks from the community are in this, it's great for bird watching because there's a lot of migrating birds in the area as well. There's a lot of tree and plant species in this small area, and it's important to protect those spaces because there's not a lot of wetland habitat left in Ontario and in the world compared to what there used to be. And then lastly, the location. Petire Island's located 20 to 30 minutes from downtown Ottawa. It's been easy to commute to when working in the summertime, and there's already a well-established community there through the Friends of Petire Island and through individuals from the community. So it's been really great connecting with folks and working in the location because everyone cares so much about this project as well as wildlife in general and the environment. However, with working in an urban area, there are quite a few threats to these turtles. So these are threats to the turtles at Petire Island, as well as the Ottawa River in general, as well as Ontario and Canada. But nest predation is one of the largest threats to turtles in the Ottawa River. At Petire Island, as well as some other locations, we see up to 95% of nests get eaten by predators, such as foxes and raccoons, or foxes, raccoons, and skunks. And that's quite a significant number. So if you combine that with a few other threats, your populations of these species at risk are declining quite a bit. And it's one of the reasons why we started our egg incubation project. Habitat loss is also a huge one, especially over the last few decades and century. A lot of wetlands have been converted into housing developments, and it doesn't bode well for turtles. And we're really starting to realize that it's not the greatest to build in these areas with these species that aren't well adapted for the modern world. Road mortality is another large threat to turtles. Unfortunately, if you've probably been driving around Ottawa, especially during the nesting season, you'll likely see a turtle dead on the side of the road from being hit by a vehicle. So it's unfortunately, roads are built through their habitat, and with that comes road mortality, unfortunately. And then climate change as well. Climate change is occurring at a pace we haven't seen it before, and there are some various effects that are from climate change. One of the examples that I use is when turtles lay their eggs, the sex of the turtle that hatches from that egg is actually determined by temperature. With climate change increasing temperature that these eggs are exposed to, you're more likely to get more female turtles than male turtles. And once you get so many generations of only female turtles, you get no more mating, and then eventually your population dies out. So another reason why we're doing our egg incubation work. So in 2023, we focused on 4 major projects. So our egg incubation project, where we had our incubator at the Ottawa Riverkeeper, and it was quite successful, and I'll get into it in the slide after this. We also focused a lot more on outreach this year, and we realized how important it is to connect with individuals from the community with turtles and wildlife in general, and making sure folks know why we're doing the work we do, and we share the results of this work. So, for example, this webinar today. We also continued our mark recapture population study. So basically, we'd go around catching turtles, marking them, and releasing them back just to see how many turtles there are at Petire Island. And usually, most of that time is the answers, there's a lot of turtles. And then this was also our 3rd year of looking at motorboat strike injuries in northern map turtles. So this is a project we've been collaborating on with the Canadian Wildlife Federation for 3 years now. and we've had some interesting results from it. And we do it because there's a marina located nearby Petire Island, and there's also a lot of boat traffic on the Ottawa River. And so we're looking at how many turtles that we catch have injuries from boat strike injuries, such as the one photographed here. So our big project this year, it was the first year we had an incubator or egg incubator dedicated for Petire Island. Previous years, we had brought in a few nests to the Canadian Wildlife Federation. So they have 3 incubators where they incubate turtle eggs from all over Eastern Ontario. We decided it would be a good way to protect turtle eggs and help conserve the turtles at Petire Island, because we found that using a nest protector, and I have a photo in a later slide. So basically it's like a cage that you put over the nest with holes dug in it, so when the turtles hatch, they can crawl out. They didn't work really well at Petire Island. A lot of the nests are laid in these sandy areas, and unfortunately predators realized that they could dig under those. So they're raccoons and skunks are pretty smart, and they realized they could get a meal out of it. And so we decided that collecting eggs and moving them into an incubator off-site at the river house with the Ottawa Riverkeeper was the best way to protect these nests. We had a bunch of help from volunteers in the community doing sort of nesting surveys. So we'd walk around the island. When we'd see a turtle nesting, we'd let her lay her eggs, cover it back up, and then we would go in and collect the eggs. Turtles, if you don't know, provide 0 parental support to their young. They basically lay their eggs and they're like, you're on your own from here. And then they go back into the river and they go on their summer vacation after laying their eggs. So it's they need a little bit of a helping hand, especially with how much or how many nests get predated at Petire Island. So we collected 417 eggs from 15 turtle nests. And of those eggs that hatched, or of those eggs, about 360 were snapping turtles, about 50 were northern map turtles, and about 10 were painted turtles. Painted turtles are even though they're still a species at risk, they are the most common turtle in Canada, and so they're less of a priority. And they nest really quickly, and they're hard to find after they're done laying their eggs as well. So that's another challenge of it. Of those eggs collected for incubation, 373 successfully hatched and were released back to Petire Island. So this is almost about a 90% success rate, which is quite good. Of the nests we collected for incubation, we also found a total of 110 turtle nests at Petire Island. So a lot of turtles lay their eggs at Petire Island. It's really good habitat. It's nice and sandy. It's easy for them to dig into. But unfortunately, with climate change occurring, and there's all these different threats to the nests, such as predators, that not a lot of them survive. So this year, I think we found 92% of the nests were eaten by predators. And then from there, the nests that weren't eaten by predators, we couldn't confirm that if they actually hatched or not, unfortunately. So we don't know the whole picture when it comes to that. We just know a lot get eaten by predators, and they need a little bit of help with that. Doing community outreach and education events was really big this year for us. Especially our egg incubation work got a lot of publicity. So we held 5 outreach events across the summer where we interacted with over 600 individuals. So we had a Turtle Day at Petire Island in July, which was our most popular, where we go in, we talk about turtles for a few hours. This year, the Friends of Petire Island had a few arts and crafts for kids. So it was a really great day, and people learn a little bit more about turtles and in at Petire Island, as well as through the Ottawa River and in the city of Ottawa. We also held 13 hatchling releases. So that was one of the other benefits of incubating turtle eggs, is they make for really great outreach events. Folks get to see the results of our work up close, and who doesn't want to see a little baby turtle that is, you know, the size of your thumb almost and weighs about 5 grams. And especially with, my favorite are the snapping turtle hatchlings, because they start off that small, but then they get massive. They get over 10 kilograms, and so it's super cool to see them at that size. We also did media interviews with CBC and CTV. So we did 2 with CBC and a live TV interview with CTV, where we got to bring on some turtle hatchlings, and that reached many more people. We don't have exact numbers on that, but I had folks from other parts of Ontario, from Quebec, from New Brunswick and Nova Scotia, basically asking us about our turtle project, and so that was really interesting. For our Mark recapture population study, we're basically we're looking at how many turtles are at Petire Island and how the populations are doing. And it's a little hard to say after 3 years. There's so many turtles, and these turtles live for a long time. So snapping turtles are known to live 80 to 100 years. So a 3-year study doesn't encapsulate all of it. And this was our first year studying snapping turtles as well. That we didn't have permits the last 2 years, and we really wanted to look at how many snapping turtles there were. Unfortunately, this project took a little bit of a back seat to our egg incubation work, and we had some challenging weather early in the year. The Ottawa River was quite flooded in late April, early May. We had wildfires that affected air quality, so that meant we didn't get out for as many days to try to catch turtles. But we know there's a lot of them. So this year we caught 83 total turtles, 53 painted turtles, which we are still catching a lot of adult painted turtles that we haven't caught in 3 years, which is a really good sign to see. It means the painted turtle population is doing quite well. Northern map turtles, we caught 22 of them, and we caught a lot more juveniles this year than in previous years. And so that was interesting. And then we caught 8 snapping turtles. Now, even though we only caught 8 snapping turtles, we know the populations are a lot larger than that. And hopefully in future years of this project, we can perhaps invest a little bit more time into this. With this as well, we also get to see the health of the turtles up close, and you'll see in the next slide why we talk about this. So the injuries on turtles, how healthy they're looking, see if they're eating well. We caught one snapping turtle that was almost 15 kilograms. So they are quite large. So its shell was 40 centimeters long, or its carapace was 40 centimeters long. So they get very big at Petire Island. And when you catch turtles, you're able to inspect them for potential injuries and look at them up close. And one of our studies that we've been doing for 3 years now is looking at the basically how many turtles have injuries from motorboat strikes. So with not catching as many map turtles as we did in 2023 as previous years, we weren't able to assess as many turtles for these injuries. However, we didn't see, or none of the turtles we caught had motorboat strike injuries. So that's really interesting, because there are areas in Ontario where a lot more turtles have these injuries. So there's a higher frequency of turtles in the population that have been hit by boats, unfortunately. Part of the study that we don't know, though, is we don't know how many turtles actually get hit by boats and die. This is only looking at turtles that get hit by boats, their injury heals, and they're able to survive. So on the left side here, this is a turtle from 2021. She was number 72 that year. And you can see this little chip out of the right side of her shell is an indicator of a boat strike injury. So she was probably diving down to avoid the boat, and the boat probably nicked her shell. On the right side, this turtle we have not caught before, but we've photographed her every single year for the last 3 years. She continues to evade us, but you can kind of see she has a pretty significant injury also on her right side that is most likely caused by a boat strike injury. Thankfully, it looks all healed up, and she looks in quite healthy shape. So the impact might not be as severe as some other ones. One thing we were trying to do this past year was we were trying to put transmitters on turtles so we can track where they go and what habitats they use. Because a reason why they may be using, or there may be less turtles with boat strike injuries, is they may avoid these areas of high boating activity. So maybe they stay closer to the shoreline where larger boats can't get to. And if you've ever been in the Ottawa River, you know there's a lot of large boats out there. So they may avoid those by sticking in areas where those boats can't get to. So why is our work important? There's lots of really good reasons. All turtles in Canada are at risk of extinction. So they're all species at risk. And they all have declining populations of what they've been known to historically have. And also declining habitats. As I mentioned at the beginning, habitat loss was or has been one of the largest threats to turtles because they need their homes, they need available habitat, and destroying those habitats is not great. So helping these species at risk, making sure we have turtles moving forward in the future is great because there are some other benefits of them. They're really great habitat indicators. So usually if you have turtles in a habitat, that habitat is a healthy wetland. So with that, it's one of the reasons why Petire Island is quite a healthy wetland habitat on the Ottawa River. Is you have a large diversity of turtles, and you know it's healthy. Obviously, there's threats to it, but it's a great ecosystem, and they also perform ecosystem functions. Something that I've seen in the past, not at Petire Island, but in other locations that I've worked in, but also at Petire Island, is snapping turtles. I like to call them nature's compost a little bit. So one of the reasons why you don't see dead fish floating down the Ottawa River the whole time is because snapping turtles eat a lot of those dead fish, and they will basically like keep the water healthy that way, and they're a really important part of the functioning ecosystem, and really interesting as well. So, and one thing that I think also gets taken for granted for turtles, as well as a lot of other wildlife, and especially in urban areas, is they provide a wildlife viewing awe to visitors to Petire Island. The Friends of Petire Island have built a viewing area to view turtles on a basking log, and it's great seeing folks there every single time we would go there in the summertime, looking at the basking turtles and especially for younger kids, it provides them some inspiration, and it's great. And it's not just turtles as well; it's other wildlife around that it's important to view, especially in an urban area. And Petire Island provides that. There's many other places on the Ottawa River that also provide that, and it's really great. It's one of the reasons why wildlife and turtles are important. So, how can you help? There's a few different ways you can help our at-risk turtles. One of the ways is helping them across the road. Now, I will say only do this if you're comfortable and it's safe to do so. You don't want to put your safety above wildlife's safety. It's You can go online. It's a lot easier to pick up a painted turtle or a Blandings turtle than a snapping turtle to cross the road. I will admit that. Snapping turtles usually aren't too happy when you pick them up. But there's videos online that you can look at and how it's safe to do so. If you YouTube how to help a turtle cross the road, you can do that. You can also use a nest protector. So that, as I mentioned it earlier, and they don't work super great at Petire Island because it's so sandy, but this is what they look like. And there is actually a group of volunteers in Old Ottawa South, I believe it was, that were putting all of these nest protectors along the Rideau River, and it was super interesting. And we saw that a lot more nests were being protected this way. So even though they're not going into an egg incubator and you can't keep an eye on them as closely, you can still help turtles. And basically, you just need 4 pieces of 2x4 and a metal mesh over top, and basically cut holes in the side so the turtles can get out, and you have yourself a nest protector. You can also go online, and there's some tutorials about how to build these, but they're quite simple and can be effective. Another way you can help, and especially help us knowing where turtles are, is adding your photos to iNaturalist. So iNaturalist is an app you can download on your phone, or you can do it on your laptop. And if wherever you see a turtle, you can snap a photo of it and upload it to the to iNaturalist. And even if you don't know what species it is, folks on there will basically add suggestions to what species it could be. So this is really important for us for knowing where road mortality hotspots are, or where you see a turtle on the road, because it can help us prevent future mortalities there. Know about turtles and habitats that we didn't know they previously were. And yeah, it's great. We can only be in one place at one time, and there's a great story about iNaturalist from our first year of doing this project. Is when we were putting or painting numbers on turtles, someone photographed a northern map turtle 5 kilometers down the river, and we were like, hey, that's one of our turtles. And it was a big female, and she clearly had a number painted on her, and it was about 5 kilometers away from Petire Island. So it's, with that as well, it's great to see. It's like, yeah, they can travel far distances and everything. And then you can also help them in their homes. Their homes being wetlands, and with this, if you have a property on a shoreline, not developing the shoreline, it's one of the habitat losses that is that used to go rarely unseen. Is when you develop a shoreline, it usually removes a lot of natural nesting habitat for turtles, or it increases the difficulty that they can go up and lay their eggs. So that is one way as well that you can help them. So where is the project moving forward to in 2024? So we don't have guaranteed funding for 2024, but we're quite committed to continuing the project for a 4th year. And we're definitely going to be focusing more on our egg incubation project. We're not going to be purchasing a second incubator, but we're going to be investing more time into making sure the project goes, runs smoothly, it's accessible to members of the public. So one of the benefits of having our incubator at the river house is in the lab, there's windows around it. So folks who are swimming at the river house or visiting the river house can look through the lab and see our incubator, see us working on baby turtles, getting them prepared to be released back into Petire Island. And then we're also going to be focusing on having more hatchling release events. They were quite popular this year, and unfortunately, not all the individuals who signed up for them could make it just because they were that popular. But we want members of the public and individuals to see the results of our work, because it's important that you it's not just us telling you or telling the public that we're doing this really important work. It's we want you to see the work up close, and that's really important. And also to help future generations care about wildlife. It's really great to see smaller kids come up and be so interested in turtles and everything. So I think that is the end of my PowerPoint. So again, thank you all for coming today. I know we're going to do a Q&A right after this. If you want to know more about the Petire Island Turtle Project, if you just Google Petire Island Turtle Project, our website should come up, and it's there's a lot more information about it there. I think Laura just put it. Yeah, it is in the chat right now. So if you want to know more about our projects, what we've done in the past, Turtles of Petire Island, you can visit our website.
That is so great. Thank you so much, Malcolm.
No problem.
It is great to hear the summary of all of the different activities that you have led in order to help protect these at-risk species. And as Malcolm was saying, the 3 that were incubated at River House are at risk, but so are all 8 species that are found within the Ottawa River watershed. So as humans who can help care for these lands and waters, and who can really make, we have a lot of power to make positive change here. It's so great that that we can learn from this project, and we can take hands-on action as well. There's a number of questions that are coming in, plus a few that we have queued up from some comments in social media as well. I'm going to start with a really hard-hitting question, Malcolm. I want to know, how many turtle-themed shirts do you own?
Yeah, this was an interesting one, because during the turtle releases and our outreach days, I tried to wear a different turtle shirt for each one. I believe it is 6. I think I have 6 or 7, plus I have also other wildlife shirts as well. So more than your average person, I would say.
Amazing. All right, now that we've got all the hard scientific questions out of the way, let's see what else is in the queue. So there's a few questions where people are curious about more about the life cycle and behaviors of turtles. One is about, like, if they're moved, or sorry, if they're brought into the lab to be hatched and then released, possibly at a different site than where the nest was found, does that affect their capability of, for the females, of ever returning to the same site where they may lay again?
Yeah, so that's something really important, and one of the specific details we have to do is we always release the turtles into the water from where the nest was laid around. It's easy at Petire Island because we've done this work for 3 years, and we know exactly all the hot spots of the nests. But for larger projects like the Canadian Wildlife Federation egg incubation program, where they're getting nests from all over Eastern Ontario, it's really important that the turtles that hatch from those nests are returned exactly to where those eggs were laid. Because it is relatively true that where the turtles are laid is where they will return to lay their own eggs.
Okay, fascinating. And then there's a question about, so let me just give a quick summary, that there were 110 nests that you surveyed, that you found. There were 15 that you successfully incubated.
Yep.
And then the hatch rate was about 90%. And that from those that you surveyed, if they hadn't been put into the incubator, their hatch rate was between 5 and 10%. Is that right?
Roughly, it's hard to tell as well, because even if the eggs don't get eaten by predators, there's still a lot of factors that can contribute to if they hatch or not.
Mhm.
We've seen eggs laid in sand. They are exposed to really warm temperatures, and we think that extremely warm temperatures aren't great for the eggs, so eventually they don't incubate properly.
Mhm.
And from there, it's one of the reasons why we love having an incubator, is because we can control the temperature at what the eggs incubate at. So they're incubated at a healthy temperature. You get a mix of male and female turtles, um, which is important for the population. And yeah, it's a little harder in the wild to observe that.
Right. Okay. And so with that 90% hatch rate, that's amazing. That's so great for these species that are at risk. Then they're released. There's a question that Marco has asked on social media about what is the percentage of those that will thrive. There's a related question where Carol is asking a little more grimly, won't they just be food for bigger fish? So can you speak to what happens after they've been released and what role that plays in the ecosystem?
Yeah, so unfortunately with turtles, when they're hatchlings, they have a lot of predators. We will be lucky if 5 to 10% of those turtles that are released at our events or from the incubator survive to adulthood. When they're that small, there's a lot that can eat them. So fish, larger birds like herons. We've also seen frogs try to eat them, unfortunately, as well. And so they do provide a bit of a role in the ecosystem as food for other predators. But after 2-ish years, when their shells really start to harden and they get a little larger, they don't have a lot of predators. So their survival rate goes up quite a bit after they survive those first 2 years. Fortunately, after that, we become their biggest risk at that point. There's a lot of really good turtle habitat at Petire Island, so there's lots of places they can hide and everything from those predators, but um, there is unfortunately a lot of predators for it.
There's another question about their reproductive habits. So are they reproducing every year?
Yeah, usually what usually occurs is it's two they reproduce 2 out of 3 years, so it's almost every other year. Some turtles will reproduce back-to-back years. It depends on how healthy the turtles are. So if they have a rough winter, they don't get a lot of food, they'll basically skip a year and then lay eggs the next year. So it depends on a few different factors, but usually it's almost every other year.
Okay. Now, there's a question coming in from Holly about if turtles hold the genetic secret to the proverbial fountain of youth. So they go on to explain, have turtle genomes been explored in regard to whether they are resistant or less susceptible to telomere shortening, the molecular basis of aging? I'm going to guess this is a little outside of your research that you're sharing back on today, Malcolm. But let us know. Is this something that you've touched on, or that you could point Holly in the right direction?
Yeah, a little bit out of my realm of expertise. As far as I know, they haven't. I don't. It's hard to say because they're also reptiles, and you looking at something like that, you usually want to try to look at things that are wildlife that's closer related to us. So I don't know. It could be interesting. I don't know if it's ever been looked into before. They do live a long time, so maybe there's something there.
Love it. Thanks for taking a crack at that. There are questions about the research methods. So curious about whether you're incorporating GIS or statistical modeling tools in your work.
Yeah, so we have done that in some previous projects. I mentioned at the beginning that we were, or one of the reasons why this project got started was for my master's degree. So that has been complete, and we were doing some interesting behavior of basking turtles. So we did a bit of modeling, not super complex, and we have some interesting work we want to do in the future with the habitat use and movement patterns of turtles that could involve some interesting GIS work. We also have GPS coordinates of every single nest laid across the last 2 years, and so there could be something interesting out of that. But the work this past year didn't dive super deep into GIS or complex modeling.
There are a number of questions that are asking about just what we can all do to help. So, what paddlers can do, for turtle nests in the wild, would cages, do they really help? Are predators monitoring them? What about fences along the road? And you mentioned about the work with Canadian Wildlife Federation for Eastern Ontario. Also curious to know throughout the watershed, including that 2/3 of this watershed is in Quebec. So what are the Quebec resources, if you're aware? Really just that if you could re-encapsulate what are the best steps that people can take if they come across a nest.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm not as familiar on the Quebec side of the watershed, unfortunately. I know in Ontario, if one of the big things is if you see an injured turtle on the road, you can bring it to the Rideau Valley Wildlife Sanctuary. We've had a couple turtles hit by cars near Petire Island that have survived, but they need a little bit more help, and so we've taken them there, and then they get eventually transported to the trauma or the Turtle Trauma Center in Peterborough. So they do a lot of great work with turtles that are hit on roads there. If you have, or yeah, so CWF also has their incubation project, and they take eggs from all over Eastern Ontario. So they can, if you give them a call, their information's on the Canadian Wildlife Federation website. I don't have it handy right away, but they will also come collect turtle eggs and incubate them. They are very limited though, because they have 3 incubators, but they're looking at all over Eastern Ontario. If you get turtles nesting on your property, the best way you can do it is sort of like cordoned off, so you don't disturb it at all. If you can make a nest protector, that's really great, especially if it's in like more of a gravel or a grassy area. As I mentioned, I'm not sure if it's specific to Petrie Island or not, but predators did realize they could tunnel under nest protectors. It's something that they learned, I think, pretty quickly, which is interesting. So there's lots of different ways that folks can help. You can also help turtles move across or cross roads as well. I mentioned make sure you only do it if it's safe to do so. And when you do help a turtle cross the road, make sure you bring them in the direction they're going. Because if you turn them around and bring them where they're coming from, they'll basically just flip back over when you leave and try to cross the road again. So make sure they go the direction they're going.
Excellent, thanks. You were talking early on in the presentation about the threats to the turtles that are there now. And though we look at there being, quite a few turtles at Petire Island, that it's still nowhere near historic populations. They are still all at risk, these species. And so I'm curious, there's a question coming in from Priscilla about whether garbage consumption is also a threat to freshwater turtles. There's these iconic images of plastic pollution affecting sea turtles. Is that a real threat here? And would there be other pollution threats that affect freshwater turtles in the Ottawa River?
Yeah, definitely. Maybe not to the extent of sea turtles. With a lot of sea turtles, they eat jellyfish, and unfortunately, plastic bags when they're in the ocean look like jellyfish. So they end up eating plastic bags, and it does not digest well. We do see that there is quite a bit of, or there can be at times, quite a bit of plastic pollution. We don't know the extent of the impact. It's one of the projects that we would love to do in the future, is look at the effects of microplastics in these turtles, and especially if we are able to compare them to different parts of the Ottawa River and the watershed, it'd be super interesting. But we don't know the extent of that impact, though, unfortunately.
The largest study of microplastic pollution in freshwater environments in the world was done in partnership with Ottawa Riverkeeper. So maybe there's a research project, yet another collaboration there for us, Malcolm. So there's some questions coming in about if people want to volunteer next season, or other ways that they can get involved. I'm going to jump in and say that the outreach component, we are starting the planning stages of collaborating yet again. And so if people are interested in the outreach component, then Ottawa Riverkeeper's Learning Lab is adjacent to our science lab, and that's where people can come in, and we have interpretive displays about the turtles as the eggs are incubated. The hatchlings are available on show before they're released. And so that's a way to become involved, is directly volunteering through Ottawa Riverkeeper. But Malcolm, I'd love to hear if the Petire Island Turtle Project will have volunteer opportunities.
Yeah, we most likely will have volunteer opportunities again, but they usually aren't until the nesting season. This past year, we had a lot of volunteers from the community, who are folks who tended to visit Petire Island quite a bit, and they were interested in helping us look for nesting turtles. And so that's a great way to volunteer. Usually we put the calls out for volunteers in May, I think, is when we did it this year. And so if you check our social media, usually we have calls there. Another great way to volunteer, not specifically with turtles, but the Friends of Petire Island as well are a volunteer group, and a lot is organized with them. So there's a lot of opportunities with them as well.
Awesome, thanks. Yeah, I want to give a shout out to Friends of Petire Island, to Canadian Wildlife Federation, and to all the funders of this project. It was really great for Ottawa Riverkeeper to collaborate. And yes, we are in talks about what it can look like for next year. Before we close up, I want to invite folks to check out in the chat that we have a blog. There's a link in there that summarizes the work. It shows Malcolm out in the field and gives a little kind of start to finish of the egg incubation project. I also want to say such a big thank you to Malcolm, all the volunteers, all the collaborators. It's such a great project, and we're really grateful that, Malcolm, you're sharing it back today. As you said, we've also put your website for the Petire Island Turtle Project in the chat. The report is in there with lots of great images as well. And there are more questions coming in that we can't get to today, including, where are our friends, the turtles, today? What do they do this time of year and into the winter? I will leave you all with that curious question that we can hold on to. If folks have folks have other questions, add them onto the blog post we've shared, and we may be able to get some answers to you that way. But for today, that's our time. That's what we've been able to cover. I'm so grateful that those 373 turtles were able to be incubated and released back to Petire Island. Maybe, just maybe, some of those we'll see again next spring. So thank you, Malcolm. Thank you to all the partners, and thank you everybody for showing up to show your interest today.
Perfect. Thank you everyone again for coming.